As it's customary with Trump, I pretty much have to change the topics of every single show at every day because I have no idea what's going to happen and there's no even reason to plan. So, what we had yesterday, we had the meeting between Trump and Netanyahu, where Trump came up with the idea that of a potentially as the media has been spinning it as ethnically cleansing Gaza, but the way Trump has said it is basically forcefully removing Palestinians from Gaza and then America coming in and sort of rebuilding Gaza. Now, many people were surprised. I think Netanyahu himself was pretty surprised about that, at least from the way he has been acted. And especially me and Alex did a very depressing episode yesterday where we've covered the Israeli sort of getting out of Rafah crossing, which sort of told me that Israel is ready to get out. I didn't think that this was meant that Israel is getting ready to get out because Americans are going to come in. But we'll cover all of that in today's show. I would go to my panelists, but I think we should hear from Trump himself first, since we have a short clip which just 30 seconds, which should cover most of it. So let's listen to that.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job. Do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
So let me jump first to you, Alex. Are you looking forward to potentially living next to basically America?
Yeah, it's not bad. After living beside the Egyptians, ISIS, Hamas, who else have we got? We've got the Syrians as well. Yeah, we've enjoyed that. So yeah, it'll be a welcome change. Although historically, anybody who owns Gaza is going to eat a shit sandwich. No one who has ever owned Gaza, we tried to give it back many times, actually. The Egyptians didn't want to take it back. They were like, hey, this is your problem, right? So although Gaza is really beautiful, I haven't been there in a really long time, but it's a beautiful, beautiful strip of land. In fact, I think it's my opinion, really, that only Gazans could have a beautiful piece of land, a beautiful piece of real estate like the Gaza Strip, and invest in underground infrastructure next to that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful beach. But yeah, it's just this kind of, I have to laugh.
Seems a little bit ignorant on Trump's part of just what is at the heart of Islamist violence towards Israel and the West. If you moved these people to a different location without destroying their interest in arming their little 7-year-olds with Kalashnikovs and telling them to go murder all the Jews, I mean, you've just exported that Islamist mysticism and killing to another locale. So, I don't really see any purpose to have American troops on the ground, zero purpose, and any purpose to relocate anyone until, forget even the hostages are returned. The enemy is completely destroyed. There is no more Hamas. There is no more will amongst any of those people to support or actively act against Israel. And until you're doing that, you're just kind of shuffling around pieces on a sinking ship. Am I wrong?
I don't think so. I really don't think that there is such a thing as Hamas if you remove the population that they keep hostage there, because if you remove them from that area, although listen, I agree, defeat the enemy, defeat them, but if the IDF is not going to defeat them, then this is far better. And I do think that it is the civilians that are keeping them a relevant entity, because under any other circumstances they would not be a relevant entity. And another country is just going to say no, thank you, like no, thank you to this terrorism.
Yeah, there's a lot to cover, but first let me also take Alejandro. What do you make of? I'll just bring you one more quote from Trump. He said, "I don't want to be cute. I don't want to be a wise guy. The Riviera of the Middle East. This could be something that could be so magnificent." I think he in the past has mentioned a few times, basically, how great of a Gaza could be, which I wouldn't disagree with. I think the well,
It
we'll talk more
exists.
about the
It's called Tel
solution, but
Aviv. If you've ever been to Tel Aviv, it's like this sick, amazing, fun beach town on the water with skyscrapers, but great beaches and incredible food. And it's like, but there's no difference except for the ideas. In Israel, there's reason, there's reality, there's technology, there's the first world. And just up the street there's effing Islamist mystics to this day.
Alejandro, what do you make of this, just for the start?
I mean, well, the key issue here is everything that Trump says is so open to interpretation that I cannot even take them as any valid or knowledgeable statements. I think they are on the category of the arbitrary. I would certainly would love to interpret them as the U.S. is going to come over, it's going to take care of the region, it's going to remove the tunnels, remove the most hideous people, put them in jail, or even better, do what they deserve. However, this is so open that you could also say, hey, that what Trump was really talking about was making a sort of Marshall Plan with Israel, with Gaza, where they will only come over, rebuild it for free, and give it away to these people who don't really deserve even to have a teepee, let alone have a home. This is so difficult to say what he was really talking about, that I think, if anything, we should anything that we say here, we should state it with a very big footnote on whatever we are assuming Trump said.
Is part of this the old adage that poverty or even relative poverty causes terrorism? That, gee, if we could just get the Gazans in a nice new pretty city and they could each have a job, they wouldn't have this desire to murder Jews, to destroy Israel, to destroy the West. And I just don't think it's the case. If we got them all out of Gaza, put up beautiful new skyscrapers, invited them back at all into Gaza, my sense is those skyscrapers would be targets. Because the ideas haven't changed. That's the thing. Saudi Arabia is always like a fascinating place to me because at first glance it's first world, but the ideas are as backward as they come from hundreds and hundreds of years back. And Gaza is even worse.
Yeah, I mean, you had like PLO jumping around from different countries attacking Israel. When we talk about the plan for Palestinians to go into Egypt or Jordan potentially, again, they are so close that what if they just create another terrorist organization, or they take over the government, or whatever you want to make of it, and try to attack? They try to coup both Egypt and Jordan in the past. So what if they try to attack Israel again? We are pretty much in the same situation. Is Israel and Israel had to do it in the past, right? It had to do it in Lebanon. It had to go into Lebanon, and because it didn't do it fully, we had the same problem. So I whenever Trump says something, it's really hard to. Sometimes I feel like I am sort of being like nitpicky. There's like nothing he can do that I would sort of agree with. But in this case, again, I like to discuss specifically the idea of, again, American. He straight up said, I think I have a quote. A reporter asked him if he would send American troops to Gaza, and Trump said, "As far as Gaza is concerned, we'll do what is necessary. If it's necessary, we'll do that." Now
Let's
again,
see how well that goes down here in America. Let's see how well that flies.
yeah, like I think there is absolutely a case for an occupation of Gaza and the West Bank, for that matter. I think, and southern Lebanon, if you want to add that. There is a case, or I think you could even make a case for potentially some deportation of some people. But again, is that something America should risk the lives of their own people? Should America directly be involved? It should definitely help Israel, but at the end of the day, I'm sort of sorry to say, Alex, but it's sort of like thing Israel has to first and foremost deal with itself, and it cannot expect that basically someone else will come in and sort of do it for them. But Alex, what do you make of the specifically? I mean, we pretty much all agree about occupation, but specifically, like again, Americans being deployed in Gaza. It's
So there are already Americans deployed in Gaza, right? They're just not from the army, right? There are, Gaza is awash with PMCs, okay? Totally. I mean, you can't move for them. There's hundreds of them, including Americans. So these are private, right? These are people who are nothing to do with the government, and so private military, right? So so contractors, private military. There's a lot of Israeli private military staff that are also contractors, right? One of them recently was killed, and that's how we found out that these PMCs were there, although it was obvious. So if people want to are paid a good salary, they want to join a private military organization, they want to go to Gaza, I have no problem with that. Of course, this is our problem, right? We know this terrain very, very well. And I don't want there to be a long-term PMC that's going to be there, because we already know that no other third party can actually do the job properly. I think it's also a little bit to do with the motivation. When there's, Israeli lives on the line, it changes, and you really care, right, about Israeli lives. Like, I do think to us, although we can, they care about Israeli lives. So they are going to act in certain ways, and they have kind of nation state capabilities, right? Whereas private military companies, they simply don't. But in terms of sending American troops, I think, that's the last thing that we actually wanted, I remember, because then they're just micromanaging our next war. Okay. They're just there helping. We had, I think, about 10 or 20 American troops here to help us with the THAAD missile, because it's a new kind of missile defense system, and we wanted to understand properly how to use it. But besides that, we don't want them, because again, we're going to be micromanaging, and it's not good for our self-esteem, right? We want to be in charge of our own destiny. We want to be managing our own defense. The problem is that we're not managing our own defense. Okay, we're just sending IDF soldiers in to protect the enemy civilians. So if that's the name of the game, if that's what the IDF has decided in their infinite wisdom to do, then I'd much rather it was a private military organization who is doing that and moving them out.
I mean, in some ways, if this were to happen, it could be something like we simply, in current culture, are not able to get anything better. A few things I want to bring up, because someone pointed it out. There were technically actual American troops in Gaza when they were building the pier that completely fell. So just to clarify that.
He's
and
talking
also,
about U.S. troops establishing law and order in Gaza with a massive invasion in effect, and setting it up as an adjunct part of the United States. That was my understanding.
That what it would actually take. But again, even when it comes to like an occupation, even if it were to happen, and now again we have like a spectrum. Trump said this would include deportation of 1.8 million Palestinians, which I think the way he said, I think he straight up said it would include deportation of every single Palestinian. Now again, where would they go? How would that happen? That's pretty much impossible. They wouldn't move out voluntarily. They would have to be forced out. Again, that's like a terrible PR, which I mean, maybe Trump could handle, but again,
I'm not so sure about that. I think a lot of them do want to leave now, because Yeah, I mean, if you've been living in a tent for a year, I think that's really going to put your perspectives in order. The only
Yeah,
people who
but
are making
oh,
those videos kissing the ground
yeah.
are
But
Hamas.
even if like 100,000 don't want to move out, that's already like there will be like too much for sort of like international community. But again, also when it comes to now, let's assume some move out and some stay. Again, what does it take for occupation to actually happen? That's also like a big part. Like Israel
Mhm.
was already occupying Gaza for decades before, and it wasn't able to, in a sense, like de-radicalize population because it didn't understand what it actually needs. But
I just think it has to be the complete dehumiliation, delegitimization of everything related to that ideology. And you've seen any like surrender footage, historical surrender footage, like a complete bowing down and submission of which, all this deals and swaps and all that doesn't do that. That works against it. Now we're just equal players, to get that break in a culture. Now this is me. This is not Ayn Rand, but I've certainly read a lot of Ayn Rand. And my sense, especially from John David Lewis's book, you need to decimate the enemies even wanting to be associated with something. And it doesn't, yeah, they've gotten a lot of buildings, but they've also kept the lights on and thrown a lot of aid there and willing to deal. And, so they've rejuvenated Hamas and maybe it's not going to be in Palestine, but, it could be anywhere else in the Middle East, called anywhere else in the Middle East, because they haven't extinguished the hatred and wanting to kill Jews and kill the West and burn it all down.
yeah, I want to bring it a bit broader now because, again, like if we go back a few weeks, well, before Trump even took office, he sent Witkoff to force or sort of to convince by sort of strong persuasion, let's say, to basically accept the deal. So again, there was really bad deal that Trump basically has encouraged Netanyahu to take. Now, afterwards, then we had we had the releases. Trump, when Trump took office, he said he was going to be a big ally of Israel. We had, as we discussed yesterday, Netanyahu's pulled out of Rafah crossing without even acknowledging it. I'm not sure if he still has acknowledged it. So it looked like the deal is actually going to fall through because some people were saying, well, maybe this deal will get broken apart and we'll see something different. But Netanyahu is pulling out slowly. The next negotiations, because basically the deal is in three phases, the negotiations are supposed to happen next week. Some people are saying, well, maybe now with Trump and Netanyahu, Trump will try to convince Netanyahu to basically do the negotiations to go further. But I think Netanyahu himself was surprised when Trump said basically that all Gazans should get out of Gaza and America should reoccupy it. So my question is like, what is like, people always talk about the 4D or 5D chess with Trump. And like, I cannot follow what he's doing. So maybe it really is like, this is going all over the place. Like, I mean, to jump to you, Alejandro, is it really like some crazy negotiation tactic when like even your closest ally has no idea what you're actually going to do?
I mean, can you hear me well, first of all, Lenin?
Yeah.
I think this is extremely arbitrary on the behalf of Trump. When I heard the statements, when the news came out yesterday, trying to concretize what this would mean was impossible to the extent that you don't have American troops over there. Hamas is still present in the region. You're in a technically in a peace phase where most of the incentives, especially on behalf of Trump, are to keep the peace over there, or the ceasefire, more technically using the wording. I think anything in this, in the way that he was talking about, is so the range of any contact with reality that I think, again, this is quite arbitrary. I don't think that any of the statements make any sense. Will he accomplish? Will he be able to get some of the things that he says? Probably. I think the most likely case is, as I was saying, the Marshall Plan for Gaza, where people that have been living there will get a house for free, for behaving like monsters, and then if they want a ticket out of there, maybe a plane to Indonesia or the Maldives, they will have it. Is that something optimal to any extent? Certainly not. Even if you would deport them all, I don't think it would be a good idea. Maybe you would reduce the degree of conglomeration that you have over there. But don't forget that Idi Amin, far away from Israel, still tried to mess up with the country. Being far away doesn't mean that you won't have any problems any longer.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan, what do you make of sort of Trump's way of dealing with this? Because whenever we hear something from Trump, or when someone tries to defend Trump, they always say, "Well, he's a negotiator. He wants to negotiate." And now even negotiations on the face of it with terrorist organization is already you're going off. So is really the choice that we had an election between Harris and Trump, was really the choice about who's gonna get like better negotiations? Like when it came to Trump, I thought we are supposed to get something much better than a different type of negotiations. We'll also go to Iran a bit later when it comes to that, but yeah, what do you make of this?
Big picture, what really worries me is that Trump has no distinguishing between political and economic power. And that is a differential now that is, I think, gone with President Trump, which is why all these things like a new national sovereignty fund, government's going to make investments on our behalf, government's going to be buying property on the people's behalf. But with regard to the changes in these policies, whether it be policies in the Middle East, war-type policies, or even trade policies, of which have been all over the board in the last 2 weeks, there's a huge cost of confusion. When Trump says it might be this, 5%, 10%, 50%, you've got hundreds of thousands of analysts that immediately start to, how do we do this? What do we do this? And when you think of the supply and the complexity of the global supply chain, I mean, it is amazing how car parts, everything go from all over the world, and specialties. I mean, I think being a globalist is an amazing thing. But Trump's totally arbitrary use of policy in the Middle East, and certainly trade policy, which is more my experience, like he's been quoted in the past that he chooses a number for his tariffs that he would think would be a, quote, nice round number. So there's no even sense of what is an economic good or bad that I can, it's just a total thing for show. And there is no principles. It is completely pragmatic. I think that's what I hate it more than anything. And it's all about the herd with Trump. If he can kind of get the herd on his side, he'll go for it. And if the herd gets it, he's out. So it's a really dangerous time, and it's the lack of principles writ large that scares me more than anything else.
Yeah, I'll go to you, Alex, but sort of it is it's sort of, if this was like a onion piece article, it would be like funny, and I want to say it's like funny the way like Trump is sort of governing, but he is the president of the best, or supposed what should be the best country in the world. So this sort of thing, basically, I want to bring in some quotes from some of Republican senators who also probably had no idea this was going to happen. So Lindsey Graham, for example, he's the big advocate for normalization of relations between Arab countries and Israel and America, and he said, "We'll see what our Arab friends say about that." Thank you, Republican Lindsey Graham. I think most South Carolinians would probably not be excited about sending Americans to take over Gaza. It might be problematic. So I'm wondering if we'll see some sort of more dissent from Republicans when it comes to it. Now, again, with Trump, this plan will most likely break apart today, if not tomorrow. But Alex, what do you make of both? Also the way Republicans are reacting to it, also the way Netanyahu is reacting to it. He basically, after he heard what Trump said, he called Trump that he's the best friend in White House Israel ever had, which in some ways definitely is true, but there is this sort of like chaotic nature of Trump's governing. What do you make of that?
I mean, we've been trying to move the Gazans out of there for a very long time. It's been something that we've wanted to do for a while. Really because as well, like the situation there is just getting it's on a trajectory where it's just getting worse and worse and worse. So in many ways, as chaotic and as bizarre, I'd actually say the whole Trump thing is, I do appreciate that he's thinking, if he's not thinking in terms of victory, which he should be, but if that is prize number one, then I do appreciate his prize number two, that he would think a little bit out of the box, right? Because we haven't had a lot of different thinking about this particular issue in a very long time. And I find that to be quite troubling, because here is a country where, you know, Israel's the place where they invented the thumb drive. They invented, instant messaging. They invented, crazy amount of new drugs that are curing illnesses and making us all live longer. But this problem is too much. This problem, we don't have a solution to it. The only solution is either they kill us or a two-state solution. These are the two options. There's nothing else. Okay, so no, I don't buy that. It's obvious there's many solutions to this particular problem. So I do appreciate despite the fact that it's chaotic and unrealistic, I do appreciate that somebody is putting forward a different version of the way things are going to play out.
Trump's
the same stagnated thinking.
He's already got the real estate development mapped out in his head. But what's not mapped out is how to change the thinking of millions of 15, 14, 13-year-old boys with weapons who hate Jews, who hate, everything, right? I mean, these is their ideas, and showing them a fancy building, I just don't know what could change that.
I mean, this whole idea is like, what they need is jobs in fancy buildings. No, that was never the problem. Right. Yeah, they have unlimited jobs. They have unlimited jobs. They had unlimited jobs. They could come into Israel. We would let them build every single piece of infrastructure in the country. It's our dream. Do you know that we're bringing planefuls of Chinese workers to come and build the infrastructure, right? So we would be much happier to take a bus, to have a busload of Gazans come, multiple thousands, hundreds of thousands. Okay, we'll employ all of them as far as I can see, but no, we can't employ all of them, because when we do employ them, they try to kill us. So, what are we supposed to do?
Like the number of attacks by Shinto allegiances after World War II have to have dropped dramatically. There was probably still a couple of those back after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but, by and large, that willingness, that philosophy had completely been obliterated. And if that happened, that's when I could see these, glorious, and it's same thing in Cuba too, right? If Cuba would just get some better ideas, you would get sick, amazing development there with total. I mean, it could be amazing, but the ideas have to change, and I don't think just putting up a building is going to do that.
No, it's definitely not going to. Yeah.
We also have a comment from Steve Witkoff, who is the Trump's special, whatever you call it, to Middle East. He said, a better life is about better opportunity, better financial conditions, better aspirations for you and your family. That doesn't occur because you get to pitch a tent in the Gaza Strip and you're surrounded by 30,000 munitions that could go off at any moment, said Witkoff, who visited Gaza during a trip to the region last week. Gaza today is uninhabitable and will probably be uninhabitable for at least the next 10 to 15 years. So again,
If here's one idea, like if a portion of it could be protected by Israel and sold directly to big entrepreneurs, companies, and it could start somewhere. There could be a really safe business area that, like, Microsoft could take, like 10,000 acres or something like that, have development of just really, and have it privately owned. And just, it would really be like a Valhalla, in the middle of the desert. But I think Israel would have to want take that up and protect that and basically claim it. I mean, I'm talking about ass now, but I'm only doing it.
I mean, yeah, make like charter cities by like Disney, make another like Disneyland there.
Like
Yeah.
don't have it a thing where government is going to put up a factory and go, as soon as possible, and don't make the mistakes they did in the privatization in the Soviet era, where there was a lot of kleptocracy and dealings. Like, have auctions for this stuff. You can have them on eBay, and like let Netflix or something create a huge new studio out there, and it's going to be secure, and it's going to be, I mean, that's where I'm with Trump. Like, I can see,
but this is the reality of people gave them condoms and they turn them into incendiary devices. Okay, so this is a population that doesn't matter what you give them, they're going to turn it into a bomb.
Unsafe sex. You're telling me.
No, but can you imagine we had these big we were like, what on earth are these weird bombs? And we were like, oh, they're the condoms that you guys gave them. Well done. Yeah, we didn't ban condoms, but we had to limit the amount of condoms that were going in. So it's crazy.
Yeah, just something to bring in back on Trump, because I'm always sort of, I'll call it out, puzzled when, let's say, some objectives are sort of see Trump in, I think, a more positive light than I do, and I'm sort of genuinely like trying to understand like what is like the difference, because I think fundamentally we all agree as objectivists on sort of what should the proper governance look like, and I'm wondering sort of why some sort of view again Trump more positively, and in some ways something like this could really only come from Trump. And that makes me sort of more disappointed than anything, that we really do not have like an actual sort of Western leaders that would sort of stand for justice, that would sort of like stand for the good thing. So the only way to get, something like, I mean, Trump has like, is preparing like an executive order to get rid of the Department of Education. Now, again, that's problematic from the fact that he doesn't have authority to do that. But again, the fact that that's even being sort of put around as an idea, again, it's so disappointing that this can only come from like this crazy guy who just says whatever. I mean, Alejandro, what do you make of this like whole like Trump phenomenon? That is it really the result of like people were fed up that there is really no one, let's say from the Republican side, who is willing to sort of like have sort of like something better, some better ideas, that really they pretty much cave into like this sort of chaotic guy, if you want to call it that.
Well, on the one hand, this sounds quite like, I don't want to say thinking, but talking outside the box on his behalf, like, hey, let's support a bunch of people, we'll solve the problem. On the other hand, I think it looks quite in line with what everyone has been suggesting. In the middle of the war, I heard this commentary of this Hoover Institution people. One of them is Cochrane, and the other one is Niall Ferguson, and sometimes they include two or three more. And they were starting to think or rethink the notion that the trade was going to be the thing that would bring Israel and Palestine together, which was one of the key thoughts that was being thought about probably all the time, but especially after the fall of the wall. That was one of the proposals back then. And if you hear the statement, and I think after that they reverse that, and they are thinking about that as a potential policy now. And if you hear Trump's statements right now, the whole idea of we will create them a bunch of jobs and it will be great, and I think it's basically the same.
Infinite jobs and infinite.
Yeah. So in that regard, I think the policy is the same. In to the extent that there is an idea, a policy, something that can be concretized, it looks quite similar to what we have been hearing before. the occurrences, the things that come up to his mouth out of the blue, like bursting balloons that inflate out of empty air, those are the different things. And usually they're not policies; they're just
I mean,
hints of
if
the new applause.
if any new thing, I think we've learned the lesson in recent years. We spend all this time, money, and effort, and reestablish the country and say you can do whatever you want, and they pick some Islamist bullshit organizations, and we can't have that again in Gaza. I think if we take all of Trump's efforts to kind of clean it up and build new buildings and et cetera, that, and they just reestablish another, who knows what they'll call it this time. And when I was a kid, it was Islamist Jihad, and then there's all these different names over the years. Like, who knows? They'll probably call it something X. It's like X is in the news now. Who knows? I don't know. But unless the ideas are squashed, and these young people don't want to make war against Israel anymore, and I think that's what's so sad is you see, the Israeli soldiers who are these young 20, 30, and 40 somethings, like probably most of them from technology things, or they're students, or they're bright-eyed, and they're full of reason, and they're full of life. And then these sand people on the other side who only have death in their heart and have never created anything in their lifetime. So I'm with Israel and would love to see that will to hurt Israel and the U.S. eliminated for good.
We have a super chat from Bull Moose. Thank you so much. He says, isn't his idea to relocate the near entirety of Gazans? I believe he said actually everybody abroad the same as relocating the Nazis out of Germany instead of de-radicalize them. So actually, my understanding is we actually did the opposite. That we actually we relocated a lot of Germans from Czechoslovakia, from Poland, from Soviet Union back into Germany. So we did sort of like the opposite, and then we de-radicalized them. And again, I think so in some ways both I think technically could work, depends what's your goal. I mean, similarly, when Israel was founded, a lot of Arabs from the areas, some of them stayed, some of them were relocated. So again, I think if you have like a proper ideology, a proper understanding of what is your goal, of what it takes to actually occupy a certain population, and you have a plan on what to do after, there are many ways of like achieving it. But the biggest problem is we don't even recognize the fact that the Palestinian culture is a problem. We don't even recognize that it's the ideas that are the problematic part. So yeah, in a sense, sort of just getting rid of them so we don't have to deal with it is sort of like the easiest, I don't want to say easy solution, but sort of like a solution that, well, we just get rid of them and we don't have to deal with that. But sort of it's hard, but the biggest problem is the fact that we don't even understand what the problem is.
Well,
I think yeah.
I was going to say, we've done everything to prolong them, and we've talked about that for a year now. So we've kept the aid up, the negotiations up, and the electricity, so that has worked against us, against Israel, in this whole effort to try to get these people to say, my Lord, this is not going to work. I have to change my ways. I have no hope. Me, my children, my family, everything I care about is dead unless I change my ways. And they're not there yet. They still think they're going to skirt around and get a little deal. And so it's going to take, in my opinion, more war to bring this to a close.
Yeah, I mean, Alejandro?
Just using the example, I would say it is as if after D-Day, the Germans would have capitulated, and then we would have said, "Oh, okay, no worries. Let's everyone go to Argentina." Do you think that we would have gotten a nice world over there? Certainly not. You had to win the war, as we in the panel have been saying. Then, if you want, maybe you can send a couple of the awful people to other countries, but you have to defeat them. It's only like that's why they had to hide away, even in Argentina.
I mean, just to jump in, or even like actually kill them. We had the Nuremberg trials. Like when it comes to the most like egregious sort of crimes, that's the way we solved it. And instead of doing that, we are releasing the terrorists, even the people who have like multiple lifelong sentences
And
back into Gaza.
after Nuremberg, anyone who had any connection to it faded away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was no sense of, oh yeah, you're. I mean, I don't want to even joke about it, but it was, and that's what needs to happen. No association with it, no, and only by total. Dr. Peikoff has a line that I keep forgetting. It's unquestionable surrender. That might have been it. Unquestioned surrender, and that hasn't happened yet, not at all.
Yeah, and it's not even demanded. That's also like the problematic part. But to talk more about sort of the day after. So we have also, the reaction from the UN. So the UN rights chief, Walter Turk, insists that deporting people from occupied territory is strictly prohibited after President Donald Trump's shock proposal, that's a nice way of saying it, for the United States to take over Gaza and resettle its people. Now quoting, "It is crucial that we move towards the next phase of a ceasefire to release all hostages and arbitrarily detained prisoners, end the war and reconstruct Gaza with full respect for international humanitarian law and international human rights law." So again, like, thanks for nothing, like UN, like this idea
Yes.
that again, like arbitrarily detained prisoners, the idea that Israel should also like release like actual terrorists, and this is equated with the hostages. I mean, we talked about some like chartering sort of Gaza for private investors, or whatever way of like moving forward, but this would of course be viewed as like illegal occupation. So again, and I think Trump has already said some. I believe Trump has pretty much ordered that United States is like leaving all, like, many of the organizations. Again, great decision, great to see. I'm sort of sad that we have to get someone like Trump to like get this stuff out. I hope we'll get more of that because yeah, UN is absolutely not a legitimate organization in any shape or form.
I want to
Yeah.
something that I can't remember we talked about briefly in the pre-show, but it was a comment of Ayn Rand's that was, I believe, in Capitalism the Unknown and somewhere else as well. She said something in the effect of that, my interpretation, statist countries have no rights. Like they don't have a right, you don't have a right to have a slave state and that to be respected by anyone else. And that free countries, again, this is my memory and my interpretation, but free countries have every right to go in, overthrow that slave state, and establish a more free society. They don't have an obligation to, but they have every right to. And all this engaging with Hamas, and legitimizing them from just engaging with them at all, just all seems into the reason that the enemy isn't defeated, and just a matter of time before they metastasize. Now with American soldiers there as well, an American.
Yeah, I mean, something to also point out, when we talk about sort of potential American occupation on Gaza, sort of my problem with it is not the occupation itself. It's the fact that we would risk American lives, who I don't think you can make any sort of like national security issue. I think you could make it when it came to like Japan and West Germany respectively, but sort of Americans going out of their way to sort of do something that I think Israel, first of all, has every right to do and should absolutely do, and should have never left Gaza, should have done it more properly the first time. But yeah, it's in that way, I don't like speaking of like you have a right to like get rid of that nation when a dictatorship threatens the lives of your citizens, the rights of your citizens. You have an obligation as a nation, because that's your job as a government, to get rid of that system in the fastest and in the least hurtful to your own citizens way you can manage. Since we're sort of becoming short of time, let me also bring up some other thing, and that's Iran. Netanyahu and Trump have also talked a little bit about Iran. Netanyahu has said that pretty much he believes. Oh, here it is. We are discussing that with many of our represent. No, no, that's not it. Oh, Netanyahu. We also see eye to eye on Iran. Uh, they uh, they try to kill us both. They try to kill you, Mr. President, and through their proxies, they try to kill me. Basically, saying that Trump and Netanyahu basically share the same view of Iran, which definitely would mean, I think, at the very least getting rid of their nuclear facilities. But I think even a complete getting rid of the regime would absolutely be something that should happen. But when Trump sort of talked about it, he pulled back a little bit. He said he would prefer sort of some sort of a deal, some sort of a nuclear deal, sort of making sure that Iran doesn't develop nuclear weapons. But basically, if it violates it, that nothing is certain, anything can happen. But to jump to you, Alex, what do you make of Netanyahu and Trump specifically talking about Iran? Again, sort of, we had no idea what could happen, but this is what we got from Trump for now.
I mean, yeah. Okay. Taking military action against Iran I don't think that it is an all-encompassing solution, because the problem is that they want to create nuclear weapons. That is the problem, right? That you have to solve. I think that is a core issue. You have to defeat that idea. Otherwise, what are we going to invade them every 2 years, right? And also, we could, as Israelis, we could also end up doing something much worse in the long run, because I would love to destroy the nuclear facilities. I think we should destroy the nuclear facilities. But if in destroying the nuclear facilities, we have to turn off the water in Iran for 2 years, or we have to destroy all of the electrical infrastructure, which is what a kinetic weapon would do, right? That would radicalize the population and would make them hate us. Right now, they love us. Right now, they love the United States. The population, they like the United States, they like Israel, they're favorable towards Israel. That is the conditions for regime change, right? So I'm a person that loves a good war. I love bombing a problem because it's a very easy one to do. It's a very easy solution and very easy road to take. I don't believe in the containment theory, right? Which was Barack Obama's theory, was containment, right? We're going to contain the issue. No, the issue is that they want to create nuclear weapons. What are you going to do about that, right? Because that is the problem, actually. The fact that they build Natanz, whatever, right? Okay, the issue is that they want to acquire nuclear weapons. And they've been trying to get it from they've been trying to get weapons from North Korea. We had to go and threaten the North Koreans, actually. We had to go and find them and say, listen, if you guys give them a nuclear weapon, we're gonna really destroy you. So they backed off from that. But so I would like to understand what this deal, okay, would look like. I don't think you can make a deal with the Iranians. They're just gonna lie to you. Not the Iranians, the Persian Empire, the Islamic Republic. But I would be interested to hear some alternative theories, because
I mean, I'm so out of my, and this is so not my area of expertise. But what would it be something like the first day with no announcements, you bomb like 3 of the known development sites, ones that we know that they would be maybe surprised we know. And we say the new policy of this administration is an immediate abandonment of all Iranian nuclear things. And this is the beginning salvo of a comprehensive thing of which we are, and take a really aggressive thing that we are going to be dismantling this in the coming weeks. And I'm just
we did that. We did it. I mean, we did that. That's what we attacked Natanz with bombs. We showed them that we can evade the air defense, right? The impenetrable Russian S-400 air defense system. We managed to get, it's probably an empty box or something. Probably the missiles are made out of like matchsticks or whatever. But we managed to evade that super wow amazing missile defense system. And we managed to bomb Natanz, right? because also, right, that was a not a secret one. It was an undeclared one, right? Undeclared kind of nuclear site. Because the Americans wouldn't let us, but some, so
John David Lewis's book probably has a much better idea than that. But I think way to say our goal is to remove potential for Iranian nuclear arms on the Iranian Peninsula, and we are deadly serious that we are in effect in a state of war, and we'll be targeting and eliminating in the coming day. Really love it.
Amazing.
Yeah, we have
like Operation Desert Storm. Operation Desert Storm. It has to be an international effort as well, and we have to get everybody involved because it would take weeks of bombing, right? Weeks and weeks. I mean, with the Americans, it would probably take a couple of weeks, right? If Israel has to do it, it could take months of that campaign.
The people
very expensive.
People start rising up and say, "Look, give it to them." Look, start.
But again, like I said, in order to destroy it, you're gonna. It would take a kinetic weapon, right? If you're not gonna be able to go there physically, because some of it's inside of mountains you're talking about, right? So that really means that you're destroying their ability for years, right? To be able to do very simple, there's gonna be starvation, okay? And those deaths would not be on us. Yeah. But if we're thinking about regime change, if you're thinking about a regime change operation, then it would be better that the Iranian people do that and not us through the starvation and further radicalization of the people and turning them against the United States. And again, because we took away their we took away their president or prime minister, I can't remember which one it was, and they've never forgiven the United States. They have a very long memory. That was back in the 1950s. So
right.
Yeah. Starving them will take maybe 1 million years.
We have a super chat from Ryan. Thank you so much. He says, if the US is at war with Iran, which they are, and Gaza is host to an Iranian proxy, it is, then it is not logical to end to this conflict. Well, you deal with the source, you deal with Iran, you don't deal with, and I mean, Gaza, I think in one case you could make Gaza or Hamas still holds American hostages because because I think was there one of them was released. Now I'm not sure, but definitely. So you could absolutely make a case for that. But when it comes to sort of ending the threat, you deal with the source. You don't deal with a bunch of its proxies. I mean, during the Second World War, you focus on Nazi Germany. You don't go after Italy and then Romania, then Bulgaria, then Croatia. Like you deal with the source, and then all of it like falls apart. We also have
the hostage releases are these little Instagram moments for these friggin' animals with all their bandanas and weapons, and they get to play real big soldier. Yeah. Terrified friggin' 23-year-old girl who's been stuffed in a hole for a year, and it's just more propaganda, and it's really hate seeing that. And it's, as I said, it's giving them hope. The whole point is we want them putting down their weapons, taking off, saying, no, I'm done with Hamas. And we're not. We're revving them up for more bullshit in the weeks to come.
We have a super chat from Yosef. Thank you so much. He says, the US is the worst enemy of Israel. If you don't understand that, then you don't understand this conflict. I mean, in some ways, I could definitely see that in the fact of like trying to restrict Israel, trying to put pressure on Israel in many ways. It's sort of that sort of weird friend that is oftentimes screwing you over, but sort of straight up saying worst enemy, I have to. I know.
I think so.
I
think so. I mean, this is me. Not, by the way, I'm not saying that they're plotting. But actually, I just want to say, okay, I don't know if I have any other way to look at it, because if the policies that the American government has are the same policies of the neo-Nazis, right, and the people who want to destroy Israel, and their policies and their bullying basically is only empowering the enemies of Israel, then they're a big then they're a strategic liability.
Yeah, I could definitely see that argument. We also have a super chat from Easy. Thank you so much. He says Trump is for Israel. Trump is for Israel. Democrats do not. Oh, never forget. Uh, I mean, again, it's that sort of like I really hate this sort of argumentation, almost like from definition, that basically, well, Trump says he's gonna make America great again, so he's gonna do good things because Trump says he's gonna make America great again. And in a similar way, it's sort of like, well, Trump is the pro-Israel candidate, so everything Trump does is gonna
Yeah.
be like pro-Israel. It's important to sort of, yeah, Democrats are definitely problematic, but also it's important to not forget everything. Like, Trump forced the ceasefire deal. Again, it's important to, like, when you evaluate situation, you have to do it with context, not just by basically uh, rationalizing. Basically, you start with the idea that Trump is great, and then you evaluate his decision based on that. But since we are running out of time, I'll just let me start with you, Alejandro. Any last thoughts on this whole topic, as well as where can people find you?
Well, again, it's very painful to see the leadership of the Western world to be behaving like this. This is not only Trump, of course, but still painful enough. And I don't know, it's very sad to comment on this. Hopefully, we'll get something relatively decent. I don't expect that. But hope dies at last. Where can people hear more about me? The Ayn Rand Center UK has a Substack. I've written a couple of essays over there. Several other people have written over there. I think it should be in the description below. So feel free to jump over and see the opinions that we have over there.
Jonathan, any last thoughts, and where can people find you?
Yeah, we appreciate all the supporters. You know, we bring you these interesting discussions with different perspectives from people all over the world 7 days a week. And we are all inspired by Ayn Rand's objectivism. It's all bettered our life in so many ways. So we need you to help keep us on the air. So be a super chatter, or even better, be a monthly subscriber. And I've got a special deal for the first person now who becomes a 500-pound month subscriber. If you are the first one starting now at that level, I will be sending you a very cool limited edition t-shirt that my customers got this year. Make no small plans. And it's got official capitalist pig insignia on it. Make no small plans. A real statement of ambition and optimism. And that's what we're about here, part of what we're about. So make that donation now. And I'll also mention, if I could, my book is Can You Really Love a Dog?, which Dr. Peikoff co-edited. It's wonderful. It's about the philosophical understanding of why we own and love our pets. So thank you for supporting us and for supporting me.
Thank you, Jonathan. Link to become a member is in the chat, and it has many other perks besides what Jonathan just brought us here. But also, Alex, any last thoughts from you, and where can people find you?
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody like what it took after the 1948 war in order to turn our Arab citizens into people who weren't trying to kill us and kill us 24/7 in large numbers and invade us. They were not citizens until 1966. They were under military rule. They were not, they were de-radicalized. It took 20 years, near enough 20 years. And then we allowed them within 3 years of turning 18 to apply for citizenship. And it was an understanding. They had to take we also wanted them to become versed in, the language. We wanted them to speak Hebrew, which is a big problem nowadays with the Hebrew, but from the Arab citizens living in Jerusalem don't speak Hebrew. But in general, I think that has been a massive success. We do have some homegrown terrorists, but for the most part, it has really gone quite well. And I think that we should remember that that's what it took. that they admitted their defeats, that they were humiliated, and they had to undergo, military rule for 18 years. And then they were able to get the joys of living in basically a free country.
We also have a super chat from Jonathan. Thank you so much. He says more Alex. So let's hope for that. And with that, thank you everybody for watching today. Thank you guys for joining me. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of The Daily Objective and The Reality Show. Bye bye.